Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy Gilmore with the Valley Industrial Association, and I want to kick off this VIA Benchmarking for Excellence Forum on safety excellence. We are really excited to have on board today one of our great experts from IMEC, Dave Musgrave, Regional Manager. Dave has over 25 years of experience in leadership, plant management, project management, supply chain management, new product development, a wealth of knowledge, U.S. Navy veteran, and a wide variety of operations experience across the board in different size companies and numerous verticals. And so in addition to his degrees in bachelor's degrees, master's, MBA, project management, PMP degree. He's got some great experience consulting with firms. So we are delighted to have you here with us, Dave. I'm going to kick us off here, just give you a quick overview of the topics today for benchmarking. We're going to go through just a quick overview of the program because we do have a few people on the call today that have never benchmarked. And then we also have some veteran benchmarkers who have done probably from the beginning. And then we also have some winners and finalists that have been part of the program, again, from the beginning time. So we're excited to have some great discussion. Dave's going to be poking you to ask you some questions, and we're hoping that you're all going to be contributing to some of the things that you're all doing. So no experiences, are too small to share with regards to, like how you're achieving safety excellence in your plant. So to kick this off, I just want to show you how to get started. Just for a quick review, benchmarking is just a tab on our page. If you go to the valleyindustrialassociation.org and you're going to click on benchmarking, it's going to then take you to another landing page that kind of explains the program, highlights our wonderful winners from last year, and then you can hit that login to the benchmarking survey tool or skip right to new.viaspark.org. I hope that you all have been able to get into the tool. Basically, if you have logged in before, you should have a username. Most people's username is their first initial and last name. And then you will need to reset your password just because it's a brand new program and it is going to be more user-friendly, lots of great advantages on the new development of this new tool. And so I think you're really going to find that usability, much better. For those who have benchmarked in the past, your reports are not showing yet on the new tool, but you can still get into the old tool if you want to reference any of that stuff, viaspark.org. And then eventually we'll be transitioning them both together. But in the meanwhile, once you're logged in, it looks like this, and you're going to hit take the survey. Because of all the development of the new tool, we did need to charge a small fee to be involved this year. For members, it is $150, and then you can use an early code, EARLY, all caps, and you can get $50 off. So $100 to benchmark your company in 6 categories. I think you'll really find the tool to be a great help for your personal, your company's internal uses, and then obviously for some potential company recognition as well. And so one thing to make sure you do is hit that finish tab when you're all done, and I didn't show the whole finish tab today just because it's actually, there's a couple things that are happening today on the tool. And so we'll make it a little more user-friendly and make a little more sense. So the finish tab you're going to want to hit once you're done, but you can save as you go. You can print PDFs and be able to share with your team. We always recommend having a champion for each category, and that way it makes it a lot less daunting to do the whole thing. But you obviously, by the nature of the titles, social responsibility, safety, innovation, culture, workforce development, and operations, you can think of people in your organization that might be a good head or champion for the category, and then you can bring those to the team meetings. You got 5 weeks left to work on this because January 15th is the final day to submit for the awards competition. So after the awards are all done and the recognition has been given, we will have reports available if you've benchmarked in all 6 categories. And so that is something that I would encourage y'all to do so that you can have some really good feedback on where you stand in the peer group that's involved. Last year we had about 44 companies that participated in whole. We did split that into 2 levels so that we could have some small company recognition and some large company recognition. It is my dream to have 3 levels because I do think that, there's quite a bit in that middle category that would benefit from a breakout. But until we have 50 companies participating, we really have made the decision to only do the 2 levels. So the Spark Awards is one of the most fabulous nights of our year, and we have such a great time. Really been an elevated experience, I think, for many. The other neat thing about it is we did add 2 awards this year, Manufacturing Student of the Year and Manufacturing Educator of the Year, that our partner GCAMP, the Greater Chicago Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, they kind of sponsor that and spearhead that part for us. Working with the schools and getting nominations from all these fine people. And oh, what a great recognition opportunity for our rock stars in those fields. Those career and tech ed kids don't get a lot of recognition, I think, as much as the college track does. And what's neat about GCAMP is it really shows there's so many different pathways right into manufacturing, whether it's right away after high school, whether it's after a 2-year degree or after a 4-year degree. So lots of great ways that they highlight the industry as a whole. So it's a neat partnership. So I'm going to have my friend Dave take it from here. I'm going to just stop my share and then have Dave reshare on his computer, and we'll get this kind of presentation and discussion started.
Thank you.
Well, Kathy, quick question. You said the early fee discount. What date do you have to have it in by to take advantage of that discount?
That would be January 1st.
Okay.
So as long as you've have started that, or started your account by January 1st, you're good to go with the early code.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, Kathy, thank you. Can you see the screen? It looks like it's showing up okay on mine. Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation to come and participate in the Safety Excellence. I always enjoy the opportunity to meet with manufacturers and just talk about their business, their operation, and see how the team at IMEC be able to help you on your journey. As we talk about safety excellence, the benchmarking, this is certainly an open conversation. So welcome any input, feedback, best practices, experiences, and even questions or challenges you may have, right? Because we have a great group of people here, a lot of great knowledge, and we can all learn together. Before we kind of get into this here, right? Because this is more of a icebreaker, if you will, right? So I have a couple of questions here. As I was putting together some information, I pulled out what the top 3 injuries were that were reported. Anybody have any ideas what they might be? Okay.
Hand injuries.
Hand injuries? Yeah, yep, that could be one. Yep. Yep.
Back strains.
Back strains. Yep, that would be in one of the categories.
Slip, trips, and falls.
Bingo. You win. That is the number 1. Slips and falls were number 1. Yeah, and then in second and third, second was struck by a moving object. So as I was reading and reflecting on that, the first thing I thought about was as I walk through factories or even factories that I managed, across the globe. You walk out on the factory floor, you hear the beep beep of the forklift, right? That's the first thing I thought about. And then the other one was struck against stationary objects. So those were the top 3 injuries. And then I was like, well, maybe just, for fun, I guess, maybe that's not the right word. What were the top 3 violations? And any idea what those might be?
Bypassing safety features.
Yep, that could probably be one of them. Yep.
Housekeeping.
Yes, that would probably be part of it.
Forklift preventative maintenance checks?
No, that did not come up, but something
Really?
somewhat similar did. Yeah. Yeah, number 1 was fall protection. So if you're talking about housekeeping and things like that, obviously that would fall right into it. And so last year there were 7,200 of these violations issued. And then as I dug a little bit deeper, the second item was hazardous communication. But what I thought was, from a data standpoint, the demarcation. So hazardous communication had 3,200. And then in third, and they were basically very close, third and fourth, was ladders at 2,900, almost 3,000. And then scaffolding at 2,900. So I just thought that was interesting to kind of take a look at that top 3 violations. And really, if you think about it, they really do ladder up to the top 3 injuries if you look at the slips, falls, and things like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about ladders and things like that as we get towards the end of today's conversation, because there's some resources or some things that I wanted to kind of share with you from an OSHA perspective. All right. So let's get right into it. So, safety's impact on your business, this is more of an icebreaker, so how would it impact your business? Why is it important? And from your personal perspective, what does good look like? How do you know you're being successful?
So how it impacts, if somebody were to get hurt, obviously that's a strain on themselves personally and their families, right? And it's a burden. So keeping them safe is just helping them have a quality of life.
That's fantastic. Yep. Really talks to that individual, that personalization aspect of it, right? Want everybody to come to work, do a good job, provide value for the company and the client themselves, and then go home in the same way that they came to work. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So for folks that have participated in the past for the benchmarking competition, how do you know what good looks like? If you've competed before and you've had some improvements in your program, what does it look like? How do you know that you're making improvements from a continuous perspective?
Well, one thing I would say, are the employees participating in the program? Are they offering valuable suggestions or participating on projects and things like that?
That's perfect. That's perfect. All right. Thanks, Joe. All right. Well, let's get into the next slide here. Going through the information that was shared from previous years, I put together really best practices, right? Looking at everybody that submitted a benchmarking application, and then the folks that made it to the final. So from an approach standpoint, and this is a little bit to what Joe was sharing, the approach was proactive versus reactive, really ingrained in part of their culture, and they had a high level of employee engagement. And so really what I'd like to do is open up to the team here, and how would you do that? How would you go from where you're at today to having a high performing organization that it's ingrained in your culture and your employees are engaged, they raise their hand, and you're out in front of this instead of having a recordable or non-recordable OSHA event? Anybody like to come off mute and share? And it's okay if you say, well, that's what I'm here to learn about.
One thing I would say is, we want to, if someone brings something to a manager or to a person, the maintenance or whatever, we want to respond quickly to whatever
Mhm.
the issue is and
Mhm.
give them feedback and keep them in the loop on what's happening with the project.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And obviously with your type of manufacturing, I believe it's automated, right? There's a lot of guarding and things like that. Is that correct, Joe? Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do have a
Yeah.
lot of guarding interlocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So that's important because, it could, accident could happen quickly, right? Something could happen. Okay,
Right.
right.
But
Mhm.
one thing that fosters engagement is if somebody brings something up and they see that it's being taken seriously and there's being acted upon, that encourages them to offer more suggestions in the future or
Mm-hmm.
participate in the future.
Mm-hmm. Have you found that it kind of permeates the rest of the organization? Like if I were to see you bring something up and it's taken care of, what does that do for me or the other employees?
Yeah, it does. It helps
Mhm.
to have examples and they see that and it's like, hey, that worked for him. Maybe it'll work for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. But I saw Jeremy was going to hop off mute. Not that I'm stalking everybody here, but
No, from a continuous improvement standpoint, it's doing one thing better. And just it starting small. You can't eat the whole cake. Well, you
Mhm.
can, but it's going to be painful. So you start with, what's something that a small step that we can take that's going to have a big impact, and just focus on that. And then move on to the next thing. Like Joe was saying, we you make it part of the culture. When they see it's been addressed, then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So next part is looking at the deployment, right? So we're, taking the Adderley structure to it. So the deployment part, some of the best practices were, structured meeting cadence, team-based approach, cross-functional team participation. Anybody want to share best practices or, how they started their journey and where they're at on their journey and how they've been able to look at safety from this perspective? Anybody here have a safety committee?
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay, there we go. All right.
I do.
go first.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
All right, so we actually started, we had previously ended our safety committee, but then in the past 2-3 months, we have picked it back up. And one thing that we're currently doing in terms of the cadence of the safety committee is making sure that every shift is involved. So it would be first and second shift would be 1 month, and then first and third shift will be another month. And actually, we just had our safety committee yesterday. So
Okay.
when we do that, we usually include the salary team,
Mhm.
leadership team, and then also the hourly team. And especially, we always like to include maintenance, the more the merrier. And then we go by like the department. So if we're looking at job safety analysis, we like to bring in somebody that works in that area, because at the end of the day, they're the subject matter expert. So that helps us bring their idea into the fold and making sure, like, since you know this area, your work center the most, you're able to help us see exactly what is going on in terms of safety aspect of things. Are there still critical tasks to what you do in your job? And then we're also able to identify the proper PPE and look at what hazards that we need to watch out for. So like when pedestrian safety, so that's something that they'll bring up. Oh, whenever I'm driving a forklift, I always have to watch out this area. Do we have a pinch point on the machine for said machines? And then what else did we look at? We looked at economics of things too. So them being part of it, they know more than me. I might just be the safety lead, but I'm also not very knowledgeable in that aspect because I don't do the job on a daily basis. So bring them in and making sure like different parts of the team in the meeting, it helps us understand it better. And especially where economics engineering also comes into play with helping us make sure that, oh, you're doing this, what can we do to assist in the function of things?
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah. Anybody else like to share anything about their deployment, safety committee?
Yes, we do it every 2 weeks, and we try to bring. We have 5 different departments, and what we do is we have a member of each department and the 2 different shifts, and that way we bring up points from night shift and day shift. So, and most of them is production. Then we have another meeting with the salary people, and that way they might feel a little bit more comfortable speaking up. Yeah.
No, great, great. That's awesome. Anybody else like to share anything on deployment? Okay. So looking at learning, onboarding, the journey's not a one-time event. Do you have stand-up scheduled training? Do you have any learning management systems? These are some of the things that previous participants and or winners had. Anyone who provide any examples of how they've maybe incorporated safety into their onboarding, right? That is from my perspective with the company I work with, bringing people on board is really getting a lot of really good visibility because we're looking at how to make that better. And obviously, safety is a key part of it. Anyone want to share anything about that, or maybe how they've addressed training or how they track training, etc.?
I could share on this also.
Mm-hmm.
So let's to start off with onboarding, we usually break it down into like a 4-week step process, just so we can cover everything in terms of HR and then safety related things. So during that process, for the most part, we'll meet with them when they first come in and then show them our old template of exactly all the different things that we look for, like in terms of EHS compliance. So they sit with me through that training process. And then throughout the month that they're the weeks, so the 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks that they're here, we try to check in, see how they're doing, and especially with their manager, see how everything is going in the safety aspects. But also, we use our monthly town hall meetings, which helps us also go over specific training topics. So although I give them all that information at the beginning, just to catch them up, during that town hall meeting. So let's say this month will be confined space. We break everything down by months. Last month was a confined space, lockout, tagout. So then we'll review that one through authorized or general awareness for the affected employees. And then that's how we go through that process of understanding things. One thing that's still in the development stages, because we've been other than one thing that I wanted to implement is how do we measure competency? So currently we have the town hall meetings where everybody just get the knowledge. But one thing we're putting into place now is creating like a Google form to maybe 5 to 10 questions to generate, okay, yes, maybe 1 point that you were in the town hall meeting, and then 2 to 4 points for if you took the competency test and if you pass. So that's how we generate the guidance of, okay, this person is pretty good in terms of things that could essentially be a trainer at a later date. So that's one thing we're currently working on to track that. And we've been using so far Excel for the tracking of things. So we have it broken down by months again based on the compliance. And then we mark it for one, if that person is completed. And like I said before, we're still building into how we measure that competency aspect of things. So one thing is they were at the meeting, they attended the meeting. The other part is, how do I test your knowledge to know that you are actually aware of what to do? Some people, some newer employees might not be as aware, but then the more tenured employees are pretty good in terms of that they've gone through this so many times. It's consistent every year where you want that we do it. So they're like, oh yeah, I've done this one. This is not much. So they're pretty they pick up things easier. So that's one thing that we're trying to do more often. So the competency part is our next steps into making sure that safety goes a long way and that we're not just talking it, but we're also walking the talk. So that's something that's been
Mhm.
helpful so far. And we just started that trial for the competency last month.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, we do something similar. That's a really good idea. So first of all, in the onboarding, there's the HR portion. A new employee goes through a number of videos and toolbox talks. And then they go and meet, every department in Downers Grove has a safety champion,
Mhm.
someone that works in that department. And they give an orientation, to the new person. They have a checklist that they follow. And so then there's that piece. But then, as you were saying, 60 or 90 days later, we have like an audit to go back and ask them questions and just kind of test their knowledge. And if there's any gaps, then we identify those gaps and try to put things in place to fix it. But for the most part, folks retain the information. Two areas where we've noticed some gaps. One is on understanding where SDS sheets are, and it's basically electronic systems. So we know we need to do a better job of training folks on how to access those SDS sheets. And another one is the safety champions I talked about. We don't really have one for the office folks. And so they were like, they didn't know who their safety champion was. It's because they don't have one. So we need to put one in place. And then every month is similar to, what you were saying. We have LMS training for every employee, and it's different for production workers, for office folks, for sales folks. They have different focuses. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Joe. Anybody else? I did add one question for you, Joe. You'd mentioned something called a toolbox talk. Is that just safety related, or what is it? I haven't heard that term before.
I can forward you an example of one after
Okay.
the call, but
That'd be great.
basically it is a safety related topic. We can use it for any topic, but we
Mhm.
really use it for production and office personnel in Downers Grove. It's a one-page sheet with some high points that it's meant to be delivered in a 5 to 10 minute time span, and then allow for folks to provide examples or ask questions about it.
Okay. No, awesome.
And 1 month might be lockout tagout, another month might be machine guarding,
Mhm.
or hot work, whatever the topic is for the month.
Any of the rest of you guys do toolbox talks?
Yes, actually, we were just, I guess you guys probably can train it into the
Yeah.
learning management system going, because we went through some of those for Lookout Tiger for the past months and meeting those people that we missed. So we're going through that right now. So I actually have it. So I was glad that Joe said it, because sounds like we have similar systems. So that's good to hear that it's not just
Mhm.
this location. Other people are sharing the same things across the board.
That's
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Abby.
How about some of the other folks on the call? Kevin, Jeff, Jeremy, anything you'd like to add at this point about your programs or? All right. Okay. Well, we'll go to the last pillar of Adley, which is the integration. And obviously, there's a theme here, if you will, right? So a lot of interaction, right? It's leadership sponsored, employee involvement, meeting cadence, culture, right? So I think we've kind of touched upon that. But if there's anything else in particular you want to share, go ahead and we can talk about that now. Maybe do you have executive sponsorship? Is there one person on your leadership team that, this is one of their key responsibilities or key focuses? No. Okay. All right. All right. So the next few slides are really looking at some of the questions that are within the benchmarking self-assessment. And the purpose here is I pulled 4 out that I thought were really interesting, very powerful, because, you know, my perspective was they really kind of set the stage for the short and long-term success of the program. And so looking at the first one here, just from a safety program standpoint, and, you know, we've kind of heard a little bit about this, but, you know, looking at this and the individual items within this, I'd like to hear from, you know, a few of you, your safety program, you know, is it established? When did you establish it? How formal is it? And if you start looking at some of these different items in here, um, has it been evaluated by the outside agency, right? Have you looked at recent recordables, if you have those, or worker comp? And so really it's like, you know, how do you start looking at this and start thinking about what your best practices may be, etc. So I will pause there. Okay, so let me take this in a different direction. Who here doesn't have a formal written safety program? Anybody?
Mm.
Everybody has one? Okay. Is it rock solid, perfect?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
So Dave, if I could, you know, I don't,
please.
I don't, we have a system of sub teams, and we take
Okay.
safety, we break it down into different modules, right?
Mhm.
And then we group, you know, similar sub teams together. Equipment safety would be lockout, tagout, machine guarding, and whatnot, you know, hand and power tools. And then that sub team is responsible to review our program on each of those topics, make sure the training is done on each of those topics for the general group. And then, you know, if there's any updates, we meet annually to review it and make sure, you know, we update the program so they're relevant and current. That's kind of our handbook, because
Okay.
they're written documents.
Mhm.
And we do that at both our locations. You know, everything I'm talking about here is for both Downers Grove and Grand Rapids.
Mhm.
And we're trying to implement that now for our sales team, which traditionally hasn't had documents like this. So we're
Okay.
working on that, and we're soon going to be moving to a global. We have several global locations around the world. So I
Hmm.
was real interested in what you said, Dave, that you've worked for global companies. So maybe
Mhm.
offline you could tell me a little bit about that, because yeah, I know the
Yeah.
standards are different all over the world.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but it really helps to have the program broken down into manageable chunks, digestible
Mhm.
chunks.
And
Yeah,
Joe,
yeah.
do you
Mhm.
want
Go
to,
ahead.
real quick, did you want to talk a little bit about what you shared in the chat?
Oh,
That
Yeah,
was really
yeah.
great.
well, David asked about the toolbox talk. So for
Oh,
example,
yes.
let's see if I could share. I don't know how to. Okay,
I might be able to drop out of here and pull it up. Is that okay, Kathy, if I do
sure.
that?
Yeah.
All right.
sure.
All right. Let me see here now. Stop sharing this, and then where's the chat? I'm looking
I
to
was
see
gonna
what
say,
it's.
I think I've got
Okay.
it.
You know what?
Do you want me
Okay,
to do
perfect.
that?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Apologize. I'm more familiar
No.
with Microsoft Teams, but okay, this is an example of a toolbox talk that we give. So these can be delivered in person, or people can sign up through the LMS and it's delivered electronically. There's an electronic version or video version of this. But as you can see, it just hits the high points and, you know, points out some important facts. A lot of the times when you're giving these, you want to definitely bring examples and request examples from the teammates that you're talking with about it, discussing it with. Participation in these things is always key, because otherwise then, you know, someone could just be on their iPhone just while you're just blabbing away up there.
Mhm.
So, and the whole idea is 5 minutes. Deliver it in 5 minutes, and then you know, see where the discussion goes from there.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. How often do you do these? Is it daily, weekly, or
So every month there are anywhere from 1 to 3 of these that are delivered in the plant.
Mhm.
And then, you know, the manager has you know, the entire month to get it done with his group or her
Okay.
group.
Mhm.
And then that's then recorded in the LMS that they've delivered. And, you know, we have a attendance list and sign offs and all that. So then those
Mhm.
get entered into the LMS. If you're an office person, you have the full month to take it for, you know, the topics for that month, and you just log into the LMS and do that, and you're automatically recorded.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. So in my previous experience, you know, we had our safety committees, and then on a routine basis, we would have people, employees, let's say in one part of the factory, go do audits in the office area or vice versa. Is that something that you know, folks here do? And any insights into the value of that or anything? I
I,
guess.
yeah, if I, real quick, that we have a
Yeah.
safety walk program, and
Mm-hmm.
so the folks that do the safety walks are made up of a mixture of safety champions who are production workers, and then managers who manage those folks, as well as, you know, there's folks from the planning office or from the finance department on that team as well.
Mhm.
And then every month, every department is audited or has a safety walk.
Mm-hmm.
And then you may have, you know, production department A this month, and next month it's production department W, you know, and you rotate it, so you're never doing the same department in a year.
Mm-hmm.
But what's exciting is in 2023, we just added an element to it by inviting our executives to pair up with the folks doing the safety walk. So, and our senior leaders from around the organization. So this
Mm-hmm.
is the upper level management that traditionally hadn't done the safety walks with us. Now they are doing it. And we've had about 7 or 8 walks this year with
Mm-hmm.
executives. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been pretty pretty positive. So you know, something neat.
Hey, Joe, related to that, what kind of feedback do you get when you notice something on the floor with senior management that's not going to be cheap? How do they address the problem of correcting an obvious safety issue when it's going to be very expensive?
Well, I can tell you, I'm very fortunate to work for a company that puts safety first. You know, things can be expensive, and of course, you want to look for alternatives, but they want to make sure that the issue is resolved. They are not looking to, you know, put it off because it's too expensive. They may ask us to say, okay, what other alternatives do we have? But the number one goal is to get it done. I'll just tell you an example here in Grand Rapids. We discovered we had a silica issue in one of our testing department. And I went out and I hired an industrial hygienist. It wasn't cheap. It was $7,000. And then when our president, Tom Weak, asked me about it, he said, so what's going on? I explained the situation. He goes, well, you got to do what you got to do. Spend the money. So, you know, they're pretty forward thinking when it comes to that here. But if you do need help explaining or building the case, OSHA has that injury calculator. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but the injury calculator, depending on the type of injury, can calculate the cost, both direct and indirect costs related to an injury. So if you're preparing an ROI for an investment, say a safety investment, you could say, I'm going to be avoiding X amount of, you know, whatever contusions. It'll tell you what a contusion typically costs an organization. So things like that help to make the case.
Thanks, Joe.
That's great, Joe. Thanks for sharing that. Because, looking at these two questions that I pulled out, they interweave themselves, and it has to be very powerful for the folks at Flexco when they see these safety audits happening, and then your executives are right there, right? So they're not only just talking, they're walking the walk as well, right? So it really takes that next level. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Sherry, for sharing that. Because if you just see in that point of view, you are not saving, but you are saving, but the waste is a safe. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Is anybody on the meeting either ISO 45001 certified, or is that something that they're looking at as part of their roadmap? Just
Yes.
okay. So Jasmine, are you 45001 certified, or are you looking?
No, that's what we
Okay.
are looking for. We're preparing for next May.
Mhm.
That's when we want to do it.
Okay. Okay. All right. What is driving the organization to want to become 45001 certified?
Well, we are a big organization. We have different areas, different plans and the country. So the corporate, they already have it. So we believe that that's a good implementation to have. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh, awesome. Anybody else on 45001? Okay, all right. Anybody want to share any other examples of either your safety program, what you do with it, and senior management support expectations? What wrong way?
One thing that we currently do is we have like we call it a near miss / hazard. So we have a near miss form that basically documents exactly what happened, what department happened, is there a specific machine or work area, and then what was the description of hazard or near miss that happened. And near miss just means an unintentional incident that could have resulted in injury or damage, but nothing happened. And the hazard, of course, any safety hazard, like the panels being open, wires exposed, stuff like that. So we usually document what's the immediate action that we have, and then also do we need a long-term corrective action, and we put that in a due date. So when it happens, we have the employee sign off, and then their supervisor sign off, and then when it's closed out, we have the employee sign off also, supervisor sign off, and then HR signs off that this has been closed. And one thing we do is now we put that in like a smart sheet is just another version of Excel. So we put it in a smart sheet, and sometimes we're able to keep track of how many assets do we have throughout the month, how many near misses, because we have to report it at the end of the month so people are aware. And one thing that we just shifted into is to help broadcasters as well, like a private organization. So we try to share something that's like a recordable or like a big near miss. We try to share it to the different sites that we have, maybe in the other one in Geneva and then one in Michigan, or maybe another one in China. We try to share those across the board, and we're looking into how can we share corrective actions based on incidents that's happened. Because now if one side is doing it, it will be beneficial that we pick up from that same thing, and then everybody could learn from each other, and so we could prevent it. We're a manufacturing plant, so it makes it easy that some of these incidents could be all across the board. And as you started the meeting, you spoke about how which hazards are the most recognized. So now when we look at all that data together, we could easily identify what is the main cause and what do we need to do, and do we see like reoccurring issue that we could help mitigate and be more proactive to instead of reactive. So that's one thing that we've been doing. So we typically share this most with the team, and also, like Joe said, try to give feedback in terms of people like, oh, this has been closed out, and then we have this morning meetings, which is about like 8:30. We do it for accountability meetings. So that's when we talk about what's the any near miss, any safety hazard in the past 24 hours. What are we doing to close it out? And has anyone commit to a date to getting those closed out? So when the date comes, let's say tomorrow, we look at it on the accountability board and see, hey, Chris, this is due. What's the process? It could either say, oh, we're waiting for outside support, or we'll be getting this closed out once this team member returns. So that's how we basically keep track of it, so everybody is aware. One thing we're implementing again is just moving forward to making sure that everybody is aware what's going on, because we found out that sometimes we could talk about all the safety incidents that happen, and then let's say an auditor comes in and we ask the employee, hey, what happened? Like, I don't remember what happened. That was a long time ago. So we were trying to make sure best way possible so that everybody knows this happened on this day. So it's a work in progress. We're still continuously improving it, but as we go forward, that's one thing I want to make sure that everybody is aware for other comes. Don't just, oh, I don't know. This I need time to remember exactly what happened, because a lot of stuff happens in people's life, so they easily push it along. But as long as we put it on their forefront of their mind, then they're able to communicate it more effectively, articulate what they're saying better. So that's what we're currently doing. Again, everything is growing as we move forward, but it's coming along just great.
No, that's great.
We did something similar at the company I came from. I was a plant manager of one of 19 plants in North America, and they had a central database where they recorded all of the incidents and all the near misses. And then we'd go through that list and then pass that on to the shift safety leads that we had on each of our 4 shifts. And they could go through and pick out the ones that were relevant for our plant, and then do the same thing as the near misses or actual accidents, and review them with everybody. And it's like you said, the same thing at the shift startup meeting.
That's awesome. You know, how you can collect data and use that to help really improve the organization in many different facets, right? I mean, that's phenomenal. And I guess one following question is, you know, as you're looking at the board, I think this question goes to Addie. You said you have it on boards, and so I'm envisioning maybe, do you have like lean QSD boards there where you have, you know, quality safety delivery, and is that where it's captured and you kind of review that and it's right there with the team for daily huddles, or is it more of a informal process? Or I'm just curious. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm mute.
Yeah, I was forgetting if I'm on mute. So first we have this big safety board that's just like a traffic signal, like red for recordable, yellow for near miss as a first aid, and then green, of course, nothing happened. So we have that board, and we have it by departments, like, oh, was it in this department or not? And then what I spoke about earlier with the meeting is more exactly what you call it, a safety hurdle. What we talk about, we start off with safety first, as always, and we talk about what happened in the past 24 hours, and then we go to like, who can help close this out, what's the timeline that we're looking for, and then what's the progress. And one of the things that came up, and then when we have the safety committee meeting, we review what was open in that previous month. So we just reviewed what was open for November, and then we look at what's currently still open and how can we get that closed out. And we're scheduling like a follow-up meeting in the next 2 weeks before the next safety meeting, so we could see where we currently are. So when we give out the report and share with the team, they could see some progress, so people could see that we actually talking about safety first, and not just saying it at one meeting, forget about it for 4 months, and then come back to when something like that incidents happen again. So that's what we currently are doing in terms of the safety program and of things.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. We'll go to the next couple of questions. Yeah, here we go. I think we've kind of talked about those a little bit here. but we can always look at getting there a little bit more deeper. So, these categories are, management involvement and safety, advisory group. So senior management, frontline supervision. So Joe Craig gave us, I mean, from an example standpoint, that's great, right? The senior managers, senior executives are out there doing the walks and everything like that. And then, the safety committee in place, we've talked about that as well. So does anybody else, that we've had a lot of great conversations so far. Anybody else want to share anything about their safety programs, questions you may have? I know there's Kevin, Jeremy, anybody?
Oh, one of the things we did is when we did develop a safety lead for each shift, we kept it to only 6 months. We really wanted to make sure that we rotated that position to as many people as possible. What I've found in the past is you get 2 or 3 people out of, a shift of 100, and they're all the only ones doing safety, and then you don't get much buy-in from some of the other employees. So we really try to keep the time we had safety members and safety leads kind of to a minimum, so we could rotate a lot more people through. So it became everybody's responsibility instead of just the 2 or 3 champions on the shift that especially veteran employees tended to ignore. That's one of the things we kind of did to try to get it to the absolute lowest level.
That's great.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Dave, I wanted to ask you, like one of the things that I think when you're going through the benchmarking program, and, I talked about it at the beginning about how, the people who, like obviously the highest self-assessments go to be interviewed for award consideration. And, some people, I think they go in and they can check some boxes. But, like when you're then questioned about it in an interview, what does, you could have, 3 companies that all checked one of the boxes, that there's really a good, better, and best, kind of a concept. And so maybe you could speak a little to, like just maybe it's the committee in place, like someone who checks, or maybe it's the senior management involvement of somebody who checks that they have the senior management involvement. What's a first step? What's how does it become richer than that? And how does it, really you get some maturity in that space? Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I can kind of share my approach perspective, as I've said on, some of these judging panels. So whenever, I have the opportunity to do this, I always look at the functional, whether it's safety, lean, etc. I look at it from 4 different pillars: people, process, systems, and structure, right? If you think about those 4 pillars, it doesn't matter if you're talking about safety or lean manufacturing or innovation. You have to have all 4 of them. And so when I'm listening to companies and they're sharing their journey and things like that, it's like, well, how have they, impacted each one of those pillars, right? And so we've heard some great examples of just from a people perspective, right? If you look at good, better, best, right? So, good is, hey, I have a safety committee, right? That's good, right? Because you've actually, communicated to the organization that it's important. So that takes care of your people. There's some structure in place. There's probably a process and things like that, right? And so it really kind of fills in on some of those different pillars. And then they start talking about, well, we have a safety committee, and as part of our onboarding process, we do this, and we have them set up to be with a buddy, right? That's been there. Maybe their buddy has a training program, or they're certified, right? Trainer to do certain things. And then, we've talked to, I think it was Jeff that said, hey, we have people that are designated to be the safety champions, but it's only a 6-month duration, right? Because I don't know if I'm the only person that's been in plants, but have we ever heard the term safety police? Yeah, I see some heads shaking. Right. So, you have those people out there, right? And so you kind of, get everybody involved. And I think that from a good, better, best, that really is how I take a look at it. And that's where I kind of asked the question a little bit to Addie about, how does it incorporate with different parts of the business, right? So safety is very important, but it impacts everything. So that's why I was asking, you know, on your squid boards, right? Safety, quality, delivery, is that where you have that, right? Because if you think about it from a lean manufacturing standpoint, you're on your journey, you have your Gemba walks, you have your daily huddles where you have those boards, and safety, quality, delivery, right? You talk about that, and you know, you shared that you do that, right? And so, you know, as far as a journey and looking at that maturity model, you know, you know, from a judging perspective, you know, that'd be looking at the better and the best aspects of it. So from my standpoint, that's kind of where I take a look at it. You know, for me, it's always a learning opportunity too, because I hear new terms, new methodologies, different ways of doing it. So it's, you know, it's good for me to hear that as well. But the way I look at it is once a company's made it to the finals, boy, it's always very difficult, right? I mean, that's where I kind of go back to where are they at on their journey, you know, good, better, best, and then looking at those 4 pillars. Did I answer your question? Any follow-up questions for me or?
Great, thank you.
Mhm. All right. All right. And I think the other thing I might add as well is like the transparency level too, right? So as we're talking with, you know, companies, things like that, you know, are they talking the talk? Are they really transparent with their workforce and, you know, data they collect and how they you know, communicate that and stuff like that. That's obviously very important. So all right. Any other questions here on this here? All right. But before we open up the questions, I had a couple of items I wanted to kind of, you know, share out. One of our technical specialists, Margot Barr, she is a great resource, does a lot of good work in the safety area, whether it's helping clients with on-site assessments or, you know, specific ways to help them improve their safety programs. She had shared that some OSHA updates, right? So beginning Q1 of next year, March 2nd, if you have over 100 employees, and if you are a designated high hazard industry, so I asked her to give me the NAICS codes, which I have listed there, fairly broad, but you'll be required to do any injury or illness logs online, right, electronically. So I'm just sharing this as awareness. Wasn't sure if anybody on the meeting would be effective. I think there's a few folks, but then more importantly, just, you know, make sure that you have that awareness. And the other thing is, as I was also looking at this myself, is they'll be using this data and you know, they'll be posting it, right? So there could be a potential opportunity to have some additional benchmarking information. And then the other item that she wanted me to share out is that heat illness has become a significant issue. Need to have a heat related illness policy, and there needs to be training annually against that. And then if you kind of go back to the beginning of our time together this morning, ladders, right? They're becoming more of an emphasis. And then if I look at the information I pulled from an OSHA violation, it was number 3, right? Almost 3,000 violations. So if you do have ladders or anything like that, some, you know, should have a ladder inventory and, you know, prove inspection documentation. And then the last slide I have before we open up to questions is just required training. I sent this to Kathy so we can get this distributed, but it's really all the required training and other information. Just talks a little bit about from an OSHA standpoint, what's the reference? Do you need to have a program? Is there audits required, and the training and their frequency? So, you know, this might be a value add as well as you're looking at your current program, and you can kind of map it to this as well. To see if there's any additional work that you may need to do or potential gaps to take it, you know, take some action on. And then, you know, as always, you know, I can always put you in contact with Margot. I can be a resource. You know, we're definitely here to help. So if you have any questions on this or anything else, we'll definitely do whatever we can to help and support you.
So Dave, I have a question just on that chart right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Process safety management, and it says it's a required program, but we've always considered ourselves like that we didn't need it. Could you explain a little bit more about that? Maybe I misunderstand what that means.
Yeah. So that's a great question. What I will do, Joe, is I can put you in contact with Marjo, and she can give you a lot
Okay.
more detail on this here, as far as what it means when OSHA has this. So let me make that. And that was on process safety management.
Right, right.
10.19. Okay.
So, and if I could just talk about something else that I just learned recently, and maybe that's what the stars mean, but for the emergency action plan and the fire prevention plan, those are two plans required by OSHA, but also per the NFPA, there's a model fire code plan that's required, which is similar, but it has to be submitted to the local authority for approval, which these plans just have to be available for everybody to access. But this other model fire code plan needs to be submitted. So I just learned about that, and it's something we're going to have to work on at my locations. I don't know if anybody else has had any experience with that.
Anybody on the call have experience with that or have learned the same? Just new news for everybody else on the call?
Yeah, we can certainly, Joe, reach out to some of our other companies too to see if there's.
Okay,
any
yeah, I
more info
appreciate
on
that.
Yeah. no problem.
Thank you.
And so Joe, this is irrespective of the size of the manufacturer or what they manufacture, is just standard. Is that what you learned?
There might be some qualifications, but for a company our size, I think we definitely are required to have it. But you know, there you have the NFPA 1, which is the life and safety code, and then 101, which is the fire protection code. So these are what they're talking about, and there's a lot of overlap with the OSHA plans, you know, so it's just that you have to submit it to the local municipality authority, so they're aware if there's a fire in your location or emergency, how do they need to react? Do you have any special processes or anything that they're going to need to bring special hazmat gear or stuff like that? It gets into that kind of detail.
Okay, right. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
I haven't submitted that, but I have worked with my local fire department. They have come through on various occasions with all 4 of their shifts actually to take a tour of the facility. So they were familiar with it. But at that time, that was everybody from the fire marshal and chief battalion, all that on down to the trainees. But they didn't really mention anything on that. I mean, with my environmental reports, I submit different things with the tier 2, things like that, chemical inventories, but I didn't submit any NFPA plan, anything like that, and they didn't mention it at the time. But we're in a pretty small community here out in Yorkville, so.
Thanks for sharing that, Kevin.
Yep.
All right, and then Joe, I'll send a note to Margo with you and copy, and then we can get that question for you answered as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, yep. And that was process safety. All right. Anybody else
Actually,
have?
on that process safety management, I work with a safety consultant on some of my required trainings off of this grid, and we were able to find a general presentation specifically about that, and we presented it to the workforce. It wasn't necessarily tailored at the time to our facility, and we really didn't have the extreme cases that they were going over in the presentation at our facility. It really dealt with some extreme processes, like the big chemical explosion at the plant in India back in the 80s. That was the main topic of discussion. But yeah, there was just a general overview.
And
Our
Kevin, is that
presentation.
something that would be proprietary, or do you think you might be able to share?
I've got to check and see where that came from. It did come from a paid safety consultant we use, so let me check.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, that was one that struggled. We just did it in November, and it had been on the list. We talked about it since January and finally came up with something in November to present.
Great, thanks for sharing, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this?
Are you able to share this in the chat?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Yep, I sure will.
Yeah, and I'll email it all out too, so
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. That's even better.
excellent.
All right. Excellent. All right. That's really everything I had to cover this morning. Thank you for having me on the meeting today, and definitely appreciate our time together. So I don't know if there's any other questions or anything like that.
I have one for Kathy. Is the benchmarking checklist available and something where we could actually make notes and make comments after each item?
So the way that it works is, so are you talking electronically, or could you?
Well,
Because we
I'd want to be able something I could download so that I could make notes on it, then share it internally of where we are as far as
Yeah. you
what
should
we
be
could
able-
do to get to it to that level, or what we've already done, just so we have a running log of, as we're running through each item, where we are and where we need to make improvements.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, hold on, let me just log in real quick and see. Because one of the things, yeah, okay, let me just share this real quick. So, when you're in the system and you've, here, I'll go. So what you see the categories at the top, and you click on your safety in particular, you should be able to print the entire category, and it should come up, I'm thinking, on a PDF. Yeah, so then that way you can download or upload that or whatever you need to do, and then save your answers, and it's got some depth to it too. So that's the thing is some of these answers that you're going to check, you will see that there'll be some more mature answers once you check the first box. So, but the print feature, and let me just double check to see, that should have all of the check boxes on there. Yeah, so it should have the breakouts. It should, yeah, so when you print it, it'll have all the depth in it.
Then hopefully if you have like PDF, you can edit it and make
Yeah.
comments and stuff on it. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay. And let me know if there's any problems with that, because like right now we have definitely we've got a developer, he's working on it behind the scenes, probably every day. So trying to get it to where it needs to be. So if there's any improvements that you guys are seeing on there, let me know, because we can put it on the wish list. So sound good.
So Kathy, if I could ask real quick, so say, as you mentioned, you have a number of companies that check yes to a question, and then as Dave mentioned, is it a good, better, or best? Is there an opportunity to provide like PowerPoints or additional documentation behind that question to show the quality of the question, of the yes answer.
Yeah, definitely. When you're in the interview, so once you're chosen, if you make it to the interview phase, you have a 30-minute window, and basically in most of the circumstances, I'd say the way that they do it is they give you an opportunity to do a small presentation, and then they ask questions from there.
Okay,
So you can kind of dive into, especially as you're looking at some of those that you want to show your depth, that is a perfect opportunity. So I think that's what some people have used very artfully is in that presentation is the PowerPoint, type of a presentation. So I think it's a great idea. And
okay,
and the key just is that it's a super tight window. Do you know what I mean? So you got 30 minutes. So you can't obviously go through every, all 10 questions. You got to kind of almost look to like, what are the best of the
the
best?
highlights.
Yeah, what are the highlights? So does that make sense? So,
Well, thank you.
oh my gosh, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate, I'm going to just, let me sign off here. Thank you, everyone.